Welcome, everyone. Glad you're here today. So, today we're going to walk through one of the tricky areas of Medicare, something that sounds simple but causes a lot of unnecessary stress for folks, and that's the Medicare timeline. We're going to talk about what happens and when. So, if you're turning 65, if you're planning to leave your employer plan in the next 12 to 24 months, type retire in the comments. If we haven't met yet, my name's Casey Alban. I help business owners, career professionals, and retired community heroes make sense of Medicare so that they can move forward with confidence instead of confusion. I'm also a pilot. I fly for fun, and that's why so many of my clients consider me to be their Medicare co-pilot. It's your journey. I'm just here right alongside you to help you map things out, avoid storms and turbulence. Whether you're about to start Medicare or maybe you've been on it for years, understanding the timeline helps you avoid mistakes and missed opportunities. So today we're going to cover when you can enroll in Medicare, what happens if you're still working, how employer coverage coordinates, the key deadlines and enrollment periods for people already on Medicare, how the timing affects your plan options. Even if you're already on Medicare, this is going to be a helpful refresher for you. If Medicare has ever felt confusing, type me in the comments. So the first thing I want to talk about is what's called your initial enrollment period. This is a 7-month window that surrounds your 65th birthday. Starts 3 months before you turn 65, includes your birthday month, and then extends through 3 months after. For anyone enrolling in Medicare at age 65, this is a period of time where you need to enroll in order to avoid late enrollment penalties. This is your cleanest, most flexible window. And so for most people, this is when you're going to enroll in parts A and B. It's when you're going to make that choice between Medicare Advantage or original Medicare with a Medigap plan. It's when you'll enroll in Part D prescription coverage. And if you choose a Medicare supplement plan during this period, you typically can't be denied no matter what kind of pre-existing conditions you might have. And that's important to know. If that's helpful to know, type yes in the comments. So what happens if you're still working? And this is a question that comes up a lot because more and more people are continuing to work past age 65, whether it's by necessity or by choice. Maybe you're a small business owner and you love what you do and you want to continue to work. Maybe you're like my dad, built an insurance agency and loves what he did and or does, and he's continuing to work, albeit with the freedom to be able to work at his own pace. Not everybody retires at 65, and some people, maybe just slow down. But this is where the timing gets a lot more nuanced. If you're working past age 65 and you're covered by an employer group plan, you can actually delay starting Part B without penalty, and you may not even need Part D yet. But depends on the size of your employer. If your employer has more than 20 employees on the payroll, it qualifies as a large group plan. Medicare considers that to be creditable coverage. You can delay without penalty. If the employer has less than 20 people on the payroll, though, that's a small group plan. That means you're going to need to enroll in Medicare at age 65. What happens to the small group plan at 65 is it moves from the primary payer position to the second payer position. And that means you need to have Medicare in place to be the primary payer. Otherwise, guess what happens? You just became the primary insurance company. That's going to be very expensive. We don't want that to happen. So if you're on a small group plan, you're going to need to enroll during your IEP. By the way, if you're coming off of an Affordable Care Act plan or you're retired military, you've got TRICARE for life, you're also going to need to enroll during your IEP because both of those plans also move into the second payer position. So for many professionals and business owners, this is an important decision. Do you stay on the group plan even if you're going to continue to work, or do you enroll in Medicare and keep working? So for many folks, Medicare can actually offer broader provider access, predictable costs, and often comparable or lower premiums compared to your group coverage. You'll have some additional paperwork to prove that you've had continuous coverage, but you can typically avoid penalties if you get the timing right and you get the paperwork right. So if you're evaluating employer coverage versus Medicare, type compare in the comments. A key period that someone coming off of a group plan has is what's called a Special Enrollment Period, or an SEP. So you have a limited period of time when you come off of that group plan where You can enroll in Part B without penalty as long as you have proof of continuous coverage. You technically have 8 months to enroll in Part B and 63 days to enroll in Part D. Miss that window, penalties can apply. And guess what? The penalties are lifetime. This is where many people accidentally get tripped up, is they're leaving their employer plan, and whether they're laid off or retiring and leaving on their own accord, they're offered 18 months of COBRA. And they think they can just stay on that COBRA for 18 months and then switch to Medicare. The problem is, once you're over 65, COBRA is secondary coverage. So same as the small group plan, the TRICARE, it moves into the second payer position. So, and it's not considered creditable coverage. So even though you stay on COBRA for 18 months, you've exceeded that 8-month window, you're going to have penalties, even though that COBRA plan feels a lot like that group plan that you just left. The same thing happens, by the way, if you're someone maybe that got laid off approaching 65 and you decided to just keep COBRA until you start Medicare. You have to make sure that you enroll during the IEP, because the same thing when you turn 65, that COBRA coverage that you've had, it's going to move into the second payer position. So it's best to apply immediately so that your Medicare starts the day that your group coverage ends. What typically happens is when you leave a group plan, you're going to be covered on the group itself until the end of that month. And then at the start of the next month, if you elect for COBRA, that's when your COBRA coverage starts. So for you, you want to enroll in Medicare Part B during that month when you still have coverage, and you want to let the folks at Social Security know when you apply that you want it to start the first of the next month. And you may even, when you're putting in the application, you may even want to ask them to expedite it. This is an important timing, and the timing here matters just as much as the plan choice. So the Medicare timeline, there's a lot of timelines that you have to follow to avoid penalties. But the timing isn't just about enrollment dates. It also affects whether you're going to be able to choose a Medigap plan without underwriting, or whether you're going to end up limited to network-based managed care plans, not just at 65, but throughout your retirement. It'll determine whether you face penalties as well. So Medicare Advantage, that's network-based managed care, and Medicare Supplement is freedom-based coverage that works with original Medicare, not instead of it. The timeline can determine how easily you get to move between those two options later, if at all. And that's why starting this with a strategy really matters. If thinking long-term resonates with you, type strategy in the comments. Even if you're already on Medicare, you've got some clearly defined windows where you can make changes. The big one that most people know about, we just got done, that's the annual election period in the fall. October 15th to December 7th of every year. This is where existing Medicare beneficiaries can make a decision. They can keep their existing plan if it's still being offered, even with changes, if they're happy with it. They can choose a new managed care plan. They can move from managed care and go back into original Medicare and get a Medigap plan. Or they can move from original Medicare and get a Medicare Advantage plan. The other change that you can make during the fall, for those of you with Medicare Supplement plans, of course, you don't have to change your Medicare Supplement plan during the fall. It's guaranteed renewable. But this is the opportunity for you where you can review and make changes to your Part D prescription plan if you need to. Medicare Advantage open enrollment. This is a lesser known enrollment period. Starts January 1st, runs through the end of March. This is for people who are already on network-based managed care plans, Medicare Advantage, and want to make a change. This is Medicare's do-over window. And this is where you can move from one Medicare Advantage plan to another, or you can opt to return to original Medicare with a Medigap plan. Another window that's important is the Medicare Advantage trial period. If you started Medicare at age 65, you started Part A and Part B at 65, and you initially enrolled in a network-based Medicare Advantage plan, and you've had second thoughts, which a lot of people do, if you're within your first 12 months of starting Medicare, you have a limited trial rule where you can actually switch back to original Medicare within that first 12 months and then get a Medicare Supplement plan without underwriting. These are important annual check-in windows along with the one-time trial period. They don't apply to Medigap or Medicare Supplement the same way. Medicare Supplement underwriting rules are different once you're outside of your Medicare Supplement open enrollment period, which is a 6-month window that starts the day your Part B coverage starts. That's why understanding the timing at the beginning is so important. So if you're within 12 months of turning 65, if you're leaving employer coverage, reevaluating your current plan, this is the time to get help. And we'd be honored to guide you through it. If you'd like our help, you can visit medicarequotes.com/Facebook. You can call the office at 954-970-4760. Christine or Liz will get you on the schedule, or just comment guide, and my team or I will reach out to you and we'll guide you through it. So here are a few questions that I often hear as I'm talking to folks who are starting Medicare, and right now, since we're in one of the enrollment periods, when I'm having a lot of conversations with folks who are already on Medicare, maybe they're on a network-based plan and they're having a second thought. But a big question that I get is, can I stay on my employer plan instead of Medicare? Well, we talked about this a little earlier, but if it's a large group plan, yes, you can stay on that plan pretty much as long as they will allow you to. Sometimes that makes sense. Maybe you've got a younger spouse who's not yet eligible for Medicare and they're dependent on your plan. Maybe you've got kids in college that aren't yet 26. They can be covered on your plan. They don't have job-based coverage. Those are all very valid reasons why somebody would stay on the employer plan for a while. But a lot of that too is going to depend on the employer size and the coordination rules. If it's a large employer, more than 20 employees on the payroll, yes, you can typically stay on that plan. But it doesn't mean you should. In many cases, it might make sense for you to move off of that plan, enroll in Medicare while you're still working. A lot of times people find that Medicare with a supplemental plan not only provides them with coverage for the same or less than what they're paying, but they typically have much better coverage because with original Medicare and a supplement plan, there are no networks. There are no pre-approvals to worry about. What that typically means is that if your doctor recommends a treatment, the government's going to pay for it if it's one of the thousands of services that Medicare covers. No questions asked. You don't have to hassle with pre-approvals and waiting to see whether or not the insurance company is going to approve it. So in a lot of cases, it makes sense to move to Medicare because you may save money, but you now add the element of freedom and choice. Is Medicare really cheaper than my group plan? Oftentimes it can be comparable or even less, especially when it's paired strategically. And in almost all cases, especially with Medigap, you're going to have a lot more flexibility and typically much lower out-of-pocket costs. What happens if I miss my enrollment window? Well, this is a tough one. I see this happen a lot with folks who have ACA plans, Affordable Care Act plans that they got through the marketplace, because technically you can keep those plans past age 65, but they're not considered job-based coverage. So what's that mean? It means somebody who's 65 stays on their ACA plan for 6 months and decides, you know what, I'm tired of these high deductibles. I've lost my premium tax credits now that I'm 65. I should have gone on Medicare. Let me go ahead and do that. Well, they're outside of their initial enrollment period now. So what does that mean to them? It means they have to wait until the next general enrollment period, which is typically January the following year. And it also means that they're going to have lifetime penalties added to their Part B premiums and their Part D premiums because they have to wait. So it's really important to get the timing right. And if you're someone that has to enroll at 65 during your IEP, you want to make sure that you get that done. So that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like help figuring out your Medicare timing or maybe even reevaluating your current plan if you're already on Medicare, you can just go to medicarequotes.com/Facebook. You can schedule an appointment with us. You can have us call you back. You can call the office, 954-970-4760, and Liz or Christine will get you on the schedule, or just type guide in the comments, and I'll reach out to you and help guide you through everything. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you again next week at 3 p.m. for next week's Medicare Live. Take care, everyone.